The wait is over. Dive into Audible's most anticipated collection, The Best of 2025, featuring top audiobooks, podcasts, and originals across all genres. Our editors have carefully curated this year's must-listens, from brilliant hidden gems to the buzziest new releases. Every title in this collection has earned its spot. This is your go-to for the absolute best in 2025 audio entertainment. Whether you love thrillers, romance, or nonfiction, your next favorite listen awaits. Discover why there's more to imagine when you listen at audible.com/bestoftheyear.
Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
A magic beyond anything you could ever imagine.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day.
You really think that's the best idea?
Live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
It's quite a piece of work.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this rainy Thursday, working towards the weekend. Appreciate you hanging out with us on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. We're brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Got Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. Got our normal Thursday staples coming your way a little bit later on. We'll talk to Chris Blair, voice of the Tigers, at 2:15. I believe he was on the call last night for LSU and Boston College. I was in the home space and did not listen last night, but I think Blair was up there in Chestnut Hill. So talk a little hoops with him, and certainly the news of LSU football. We'll talk about that with Chris Blair. Luke Johnson, 2:30 from Saints. We haven't talked a lot of Saints. They're back in action this weekend on Sunday at Tampa, so we'll get a thought on the black and gold at 2:30 with Luke. What's the deal with Blake Baker? I'll talk about it in 15 minutes, and I want to react myself to LSU's win last night in Chestnut Hill against Boston College in the ACC-SEC Challenge coming up at 1:30. But we start today with signing day, signing period stuff. I've got kind of just our checklist. I know that some of you, and we very much appreciate you, are locked in 7 to 10, are locked in 11 to 1, are locked in 1 to 3, or locked in 3 to 6. You're listening to us a lot all day, and this is kind of going to be regurgitating some information if that is you. I know some of you just catch us when you're in the car, and that may be right now. It may have been at 11:15 this morning. It may be later on at 5:15 this afternoon, but you're here now. And so I'm going to cover like the pertinent things with LSU's 2026 signing class in this 3-day window to sign high school players for Lane Kiffin. Starts with Richard Anderson. Richard Anderson, yesterday, you're all aware, the 5-star defensive tackle from Edna Carr, number 1 defensive tackle in the country. He was the first commitment into this LSU class. And yesterday, he went to his signing ceremony at Carr, where they had 15 kids signing D1 scholarships. And he said, y'all thought I wasn't signing. I am signing. Going to put pen to paper. And everybody that was there, I mean, this is not like deep in the shadow stuff. There were a lot of reporters there. I mean, Carr's 15 kids signing. That is a media event for the folks in South Louisiana. And so the people that were there interviewed him like, yeah, signing. So everyone writes that he's going to sign. We switched him over on our tracker, but LSU never announced it yesterday. So you start to go, okay, what's the deal? And today, we reported at LouisianaSports.net, not anonymous sources. Matt Moscona spoke with Bryce Brown, Carr's coach. Bryce Brown said, yes, Richard Anderson has spoken with LSU. He's going to sign. There's a clerical issue. When he gets out of testing today, he will sign. I have absolutely no reason, concrete reason, to deny that from Bryce Brown. He's the kid's coach, okay? Bryce Brown has met with Lane Kiffin and the staff. We know that. And he's right there with Big Rich. So I believe Bryce Brown. I'll also say it's a little bit fishy, like a clerical error. We can just get that sent back over. This is not right. We'll send that right back. That seems like a little bit much for me, but recruiting's a wild, wild west. I'm going to take Bryce Brown for his word for it. I'm going to take Richard Anderson yesterday at his word for it. I believe, based on those two people's comments in the last literally 24 hours, that Richard Anderson's going to sign with LSU today. If that doesn't happen and I wake up tomorrow morning, Friday, and he still has not signed, I'll go, that's something. But right now, imagining that's going to happen. Lamar Brown is not as upfront, but people around LSU feel pretty good about Lamar Brown between now and the end of this period tomorrow. We'll see when he decides to sign. Sounds like that's going to happen tomorrow at U-High in a ceremony. I believe that's going to be LSU. I think LSU believes it's going to be LSU. I'm not a recruiting insider, but those are the vibes you're getting right now with Lamar Brown. And those are certainly the two guys that you looked at in this class, in the state, the position they played, the defensive front, that you really would like to get in this class. I understand the landscape of college football. I understand that guys sign and then leave a year later. I understand that you can miss out on guys and they can come back a year later. I understand all those things about the portal being potentially more impactful year over year than the high school signees, but I do believe in high school signatures. I do believe in getting weeks into your program. I do believe in getting DJ Pickett into your program. I do believe in getting Malik Neighbors into your program. I do believe in getting Will Campbell and Emory Jones into your program and having them for 3 years in this era of the transfer portal. And I also believe that Lane Kiffin is going to handle LSU's offense and that LSU's offense annually is going to be a top 20 operation. He did that at Ole Miss. He did that at Bama. He won conference championships at FAU by scoring a ton of points. I think he's going to do that at LSU. The defensive side of the ball is going to be the one that is going to be coordinator dependent here at LSU and is going to be player dependent here at LSU. And these are two guys on the defensive front from Louisiana that you'd really like to get in this class. And I believe right now, based on people that we've talked to, based on reports that have been had, based on the national recruiting folks, our local recruiting folks who do an awesome job, there's not a lot that suggests that Richard Anderson and Lamar Brown are not going to be in this class. Would you have liked that to happen yesterday? Yes. Did it happen yesterday? No. Could it happen any second now? Yes. Will it happen by the end of Friday when this period closes? I believe so. It remains to be seen. There is further news. We talked about yesterday that it was a good day for LSU because they did not lose any of their commitments to flips. But that door remained open as 6 kids remained unsigned. And one of them this morning did make an expected flip. Dylan Purter, 4-star safety from Alabama, committed and signed with Florida earlier today. So that's a guy, safety in this class, that LSU has had committed since March, who's decided to go join Florida. It was expected, not much more to add to that situation. The other one that did come up today that we talked about a little bit yesterday, but that we weren't certain of because there was no paperwork, was Landon Duckworth. Landon Duckworth is a 4-star quarterback, number 10 ranked cornerback in the country, 6'3", dual threat, runs 4x100 track on a state championship track relay team, averaged 10 points per game in basketball, led his team to a state championship in football as a junior, threw for 3,000 yards, ran for 650 more. Very good athlete, good quarterback prospect, and a guy that LSU, under Brian Kelly and Joe Sloan, had recruited, and he liked LSU, but he decided to commit to South Carolina. He also talked to the staff at Ole Miss extensively in his recruiting process, but he decided to commit to South Carolina. Yesterday, Steve Wiltfong, national over at On3, and Shea Dixon, local over at On3, put in recruiting prediction machines for Landon Duckworth to flip and sign with LSU. And both those guys do incredible work. And I thought, well, that's likely to happen then if those two guys say that. And as you know, that was probably the case yesterday. But once that happens, those phones start lighting up. Negotiations start happening. You get a couple coaches playing tug of war. And ultimately this morning, the commitment won out, and Landon Duckworth did pledge to South Carolina. Now, how big a hit is that to LSU? Well, it's not really a hit considering he was already committed to South Carolina and never decommitted from South Carolina. It was just what the folks were hearing through the bushes that this might be a guy that flips. I would have loved it if LSU got a high school quarterback in this class. Because you look at LSU right now from a quarterback perspective, you've got Garrett Nussmeier on this roster, he's out of eligibility. You've got Michael Van Buren on this roster, he's played 2 years of SEC football. You've got Colin Hurley officially listed on the roster, he's away from the team. That's it. So right now, you're looking at January 1st, well, maybe January 3rd when the season's over for LSU if they play on the 2nd in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. You move forward with one quarterback for sure on the roster, and he's not even for sure because he's a free agent at the end of every year like every other player. I would just like to have a body signed up to come play football for LSU at quarterback. Plus, he's a pretty talented athlete and a guy that this LSU staff that I'm now talking about, Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr., have a relationship with. So I wouldn't expect Landon Duckworth to come in and start at LSU next year, but just to be on the team. I need quarterbacks on the team, and they don't have quarterbacks on the team. We'll see if Michael Van Buren sticks around. Again, that's not speculation that he might leave. It's just always a possibility, right? And they just don't have any more depth at quarterback. So I would have loved to have had that. There is no question, zero question, that LSU is going to go hard in the transfer portal after the best quarterback they can find. That's Lane Kiffin's MO. He did it with Jackson Dart. He did it with Walker Howard. He did it with Spencer Sanders. He did it with Trinidad Chambliss. Like, he goes and finds quarterbacks in the transfer portal, and he's really good at it. So they're going to do that in January. But I'm certainly not going to turn away a high schooler that wants to show up. And so that would have been a really nice addition to this early signing period class. It just didn't come to pass. So it looks like LSU will go a second consecutive high school class without signing a quarterback. It's not a death sentence in this era, far from it. But I would just prefer to bring a high schooler in as a body. But you're not going to do that, it doesn't appear. So at this point, as you look at LSU's class, feel good about Richard Anderson. We're told today. Remains to be seen if it happens. We'll tell you. Feel good about Lamar Brown, potentially tomorrow. Again, nothing official. We feel pretty good about that. Dylan Purter flips, and then Landon Duckworth does stick with his commitment to South Carolina. That's where LSU stands right now from a class perspective. You're talking about a class, looks like, based on what we think and what we're looking at here, you're going to get about 15, 16 players in this high school class. And that would have been a really, really big problem 10 years ago. It just means you got more roster spots to spill in the transfer portal coming up in January. And Lane Kiffin got to the podium for his introductory press conference on Monday and said, I have no doubt about the transfer portal, no doubt about interest. We know what we had in terms of interest at Ole Miss. When you put this brand on, you go in that stadium with these colors, that logo, you're going to be awesome in the transfer portal. Plus, you look at what LSU has set aside in terms of funds for student athletes, revenue sharing, and then what you can do from an NIL perspective. And you feel like LSU is going to make some hay in the transfer portal, but that still remains to be seen. One of the reasons I think Lane Kiffin took this job was to be able to identify and recruit local high school players with a little bit more ease. This is not the class where he's got the chance to lay any groundwork for that. That'll be next year to start. But it looks like LSU's in pretty good shape in terms of their average star ranking in this class. Is just not going to be a class that's got significant numbers behind it. That's going to have to come from the transfer portal for the 2026 roster. And then you continue to see how things evolve and just recruit the best players you can. And Lane Kiffin has certainly talked about that in his introductory press conference back on Monday inside Tiger Stadium. So that'll crank things up here on this Thursday, brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. When we come back, the latest on Blake Baker. It's not just Tulane that's in the mix now. We'll talk about it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is the website. Jonathan Carbo and his team are just awesome to work with from an insurance perspective. A lot of folks renew their programs from a commercial perspective in January. So if you are a business owner, you're a CFO, you are a risk management, you're in charge of the property and casualty insurance with your program, and you're looking for a second option, the Highland Insurance Group is thrilled to help you out with that. It doesn't cost anything, free, for them to audit your policy. They'll look at it, they'll see where you're placed, see what lines of coverage you have, see what the exclusions may read in your program, and if they see issues, they're going to let you know about it and help you to fix them. They understand that premium is an important piece to it. They know that. They're able to shop with dozens of carriers because they're an independent broker. But they also want to make sure that your business is protected when that car accident happens, when that hurricane rolls through, when that lawsuit happens, or one of your employees clicks an email he or she should not have and you've got a cyber breach. That's where your insurance needs to kick in. And if you've just cut the corners to get the lowest premium, and now you've got an exposure, well, that's not ideally how you want to handle it. So the Highland Insurance Group is here to help you from that perspective. Reach out to them online at HighlandIG.com. They're located here in Baton Rouge and are happy to help you anywhere in the state of Louisiana. It's the Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
A reminder, a little housekeeping issue here on our family of networks here under the Guarantee roof. Tonight, LSU women's basketball in Cameron Indoor against Duke in the SEC ACC Challenge. And you can listen to that on Eagle 98.1, which generally is the home of the men's basketball broadcast. But you can find it on Eagle 98.1 as well as Talk 107.3. Tonight, women's basketball from Cameron Indoor. So if you want to listen to that ball game, you're out and about this evening, which not a great evening to be out and about if we're just being honest. It's really wet and cold out there. But if you are, you can catch the women on Eagle 98.1. Okay, so there's a report today from Gary Smith, who covers Tulane for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. And his tweet 4 hours ago says, my intel indicates Tulane plans to wrap up its coaching search this week. Many candidates have interviewed, but the 5 I know of for certain are Bob Chesney, who's already taken the job at UCLA, Blake Baker, Billy Napier, Charlie Huff, and Will Hall. Now, Smith is indicating that he knows there have been more interviews, but these are the 4 that he is pointing out. Blake Baker from here at LSU, Billy Napier, obviously, just fired at Florida. Charlie Huff, if you're not familiar with Charlie Huff was the head coach at Marshall for 4 years, built them into a 10-win team in 2024, and this past year took the job at Southern Miss and went 7-5 at Southern Miss. And then also Will Hall. Now, Will Hall's got a different record at Southern Miss. That's who Charlie Huff took over for. Will Hall took over a Southern Miss program that was in decent shape, went 3-9, 7-6, 3-9, 1-6, and was fired, and then took over as the pass game coordinator at Tulane this year. So he's already on staff at Tulane. So you're looking at 2 guys with SMU ties, one that just got fired from there that's on Tulane staff, and the other guy who just took that job over. And then you've got Blake Baker up for this job. And then you've got Billy Napier. Now, Billy Napier has been mentioned by multiple national outlets today as being heavily involved in the James Madison search. And that, to me, indicates there's a real chance he gets that job. I know that that Billy Napier has been linked to Tulane significantly here, and I'm not suggesting that he's definitely not getting the Tulane job, but it feels like when the national outlets put a guy with a job, it feels like they're down the road there. That's not like they might call him. That's like they've talked to him. Agents are in significant negotiations. And so I'm just reading tea leaves here. Nothing's been made official. I'm just telling you what I'm reading based on the national reporting, as well as some of the things that have been said around Baton Rouge and around New Orleans, which is obviously where I'm sitting right now. And my opinion on this matter is that it's likely Blake Baker gets a head coaching job in the next 3 days. I think that he would take the Tulane job if offered. I said that yesterday, and I think there's a good chance Tulane offers him that job. I think he's a significantly better candidate than Will Hall, who ran Southern Miss into the ground. He's there right now at Tulane, but he ran him into the ground. And then you've got Charlie Huff, who coached Marshall, did a great job. Coached Southern Miss, did a nice job this year. Maybe it's those 2 guys, and I think Blake Baker probably brings a little bit more cachet because he's a national name from his time at Missouri, time at LSU. He's a Tulane alum. He's recruited the state of Louisiana for the last 2 years, and then in a previous stint at LSU and a previous stint at Louisiana Tech as their defensive coordinator. So you're talking about a guy it to me seems like a better hire. Now, like I've said, Tulane's last 2 hires have been great. They hired Willie Fritz, who was a head coach sitting at Georgia Southern, and they hired Can't come up with it.
Summerall?
Florida just hired him. Summerall. It's just, there's live radio. Just sometimes it just doesn't show up. They hired John Summerall, who was a sitting coach at Troy. And so not Will Hall. So Huff would be in line with that. But Baker, to me, sounds like a bigger splash hire and sounds like a guy that has a little bit better credentials to me. We'll see. But we also now know that Memphis is heavily involved with Blake Baker. I actually, somehow, some way, you'll never hear me talk like this. So when I do, I hope that you take it seriously. I actually do have some ears to the ground in Memphis. It's not a lot of places I have ears, but I do have ears to the ground in Memphis. And there's real Blake Baker buzz in Memphis. So my opinion on this matter is that Tulane and Memphis are kind of wrestling here. And when that happens, you kind of feel like the writing's on the wall. Now, to Blake Baker's sincere credit, he has gone through the last week really working with LSU, with Lane Kiffin, on trying to recruit players. And he has said, I'm here, I'm the defensive coordinator. And I think that's being sincere, because I don't believe at this point, based on the information that we've got, anyone has told Blake Baker, like, you're the guy. I don't think that's happened yet. I just think it's probably going to happen. And to me, that's going to be a real tough blow to Lane Kiffin's first staff, because I think he had a defensive coordinator in Pete Golding that he really liked, really trusted, really thought did a great job. And maybe you could bring Pete Golding with you as a Hammond native to LSU when you take the job, but he gets the head job at Ole Miss. And then you come to LSU and you've got a defensive staff that has taken the 108th total defense in college football and made them a top 15 scoring defense in college football in 2 seasons. And they're in place, and they're probably ready to go to work for you, but then the coordinator gets a head coaching job. And that happens. There was no way that Blake Baker was going to be Lane Kiffin's defensive coordinator for 2 more years, no matter what, because coordinators just generally don't stay that long, especially if they have aspirations of being a head coach. And we feel like Blake Baker certainly does. So at this point, Lane Kiffin's going to be fine on offense. Charlie Weiss is coming with him. He's got his wide receivers coach. We feel like got an offensive line coach that potentially is in place. We reported that at LouisianaSports.net. We don't know what the exact title is, but you've got a veteran SEC offensive line coach that's already in the building. You've got what's going to be a discussion, but at running back coach, it's either Kevin Smith or Frank Wilson. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we move forward. But the offensive staff is well coming together. And the defensive staff, if Blake Baker leaves, whether it's to Tulane, whether it's to Memphis, he handpicked Kevin Peoples to coach the edge rushers. He handpicked Jake Olson to work with the safeties. And Kyle Williams has been on the staff and been a college coach for 1 year. So those guys, especially Olson and Peoples, could be candidates to go with him wherever he goes for likely an elevation. Maybe Kevin Peoples gets to coach the entire defensive line instead of just the edge rushers. Maybe he becomes a defensive coordinator. Maybe Jake Olson gets to coach the entire secondary. Maybe he's a defensive coordinator. I don't know. I'm hypothesizing on this, but those are Blake Baker's guys. He worked with them at Missouri, and he brought them to Baton Rouge. It stands to reason they might go with him. And even so, if he leaves, Lane Kiffin's got to hire a defensive coordinator, and if that guy comes in, maybe he's got guys he wants to bring. So you see that there will be a significant shakeup if Blake Baker does take another job. And at this point, my opinion, my guess, based on national reporting, what we're hearing in New Orleans, what we're hearing in Baton Rouge, what I'm hearing in Memphis, the feeling is I think it's an 85% or so chance that Blake Baker's not going to be here in 2 weeks. That's what I think. Now, he may coach the bowl game. I have no idea. He may go and let somebody else coach the bowl game. And I'll be candid with you. It's not the most popular thing to say. I don't care about the bowl game. I don't know who's going to play. I don't know who's going to coach the other team or who's going to play on the other team. I've got John Trey Kirkland playing quarterback 1 year. I've got LSU playing a Purdue skeleton the other year and scoring 65 points. I don't – the result of the bowl game is just inconsequential to me. I hate that because I liked bowl games when I was younger. It's gone. It's over. For me personally, you can paint your face purple and gold and fly first class at the game and sit on the 50-yard line for $300 if you want, and I'm thrilled that you want to do that. I'm speaking for myself. I don't care about the bowl game. I care about next year's football team at this point. And next year's football team would be in better shape right now if Blake Baker was retained and stayed at LSU. But the stuff that I'm hearing right now makes it, to me, likely that he's not going to be here next year. He's working hard for LSU right now, but he's also doing interviews, we know. And I believe he's talked to Tulane. I believe he has talked to Memphis. And I just don't think that both of those jobs are going to go by the wayside. And by the way, like if you feel like the next step for Blake Baker, if you're Blake Baker and think the next step is probably a G5 coaching job, like Memphis and Tulane are about as good as it gets. Both are in big cities. Both have big-time recruiting geographical advantages. Both have won a lot of games recently. You've looked at guys that have left Tulane for the Houston job, left Tulane for the Florida job. Memphis's last couple coaches have left for Arkansas and Florida State. Like, these are great springboard programs, and Blake Baker's got roots in New Orleans as an alum there as well. So this is a great opportunity for Blake Baker, but if we're talking about it from an LSU perspective, and especially from a Lane Kiffin perspective, where defense is his biggest variable, this is a pretty big hit to him if it happens here in the next couple of days. Maybe we get an announcement that Tulane's found its guy and that Memphis has found its guy. I haven't seen a lot of reporting on who Memphis is looking for outside of Blake Baker, but it feels like right now that's where one of those two places are going to name him their head coach here in the next few days. And if you're looking at Gary Smith, who covers Tulane's looking to wrap this thing up probably in the next 50, 75 hours. So we shall see. Just my thoughts on that, and we'll react to it looking back if it happens. That's just kind of my preview of where things are headed here as we sit on Thursday afternoon. I want to remind you about Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Love Sean Sagrera and all the folks over at Sagrera Farms. It's a great time to go see the farm. If you've got questions about the beef that you buy weekly, that you cook at home, you don't know where it comes from, you don't know whether or not they use improper steroids, improper antibiotics, you don't know when you buy that 1 pound pack of ground beef whether there's 1,000 DNA or where the DNA came from. You got questions. Plus, the price has gone up significantly, right? Not at Sagrera Farms. So if you want to know exactly where your beef comes from, Sagrera Farms, right outside Baton Rouge. If you want to know exactly that there's been no improper steroid use, no antibiotic use, if you want to know that you're talking about a product that is 1 cow, 1 DNA that you're buying, this is a different way to buy your beef at Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Give Sean a call, 719-1723. 719-1723. Say, hey, Sean, heard Hunt talking about you. I'd love to get a side of beef. I'd love to get a whole cow. Whether you're going to put that in your freezer, you want to disperse it to friends and family for Christmas, clients for Christmas, you can do that over at Sagrera Farms as well. It's just a different way to do your beef. And oh, by the way, what I haven't mentioned, top 1% of the beef in the country comes from Sagrera Farms. Fillets, strips, ribeyes, ground beef. Sagrera Farms. They bring you our Thursday shows here on the Hunt Palmer Show. We will come back. Still got a lot to do over the next 90 minutes here. Let's talk LSU hoops. They got a win last night. I got a lot of thoughts on that. We'll do it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Got a Bayou Ford chat. Who is Blake Baker? Who is Lane Kiffin considering a defensive coordinator if Blake Baker does leave? That's a discussion probably to be had when Blake Baker leaves, if he leaves. So we'll do that then. I'm not going to, unless he's got a sitting defensive coordinator, and I'm going to go, well, here are the 4 guys he's looking at, which 1, I don't know who he's looking at, and 2, you don't have an opening yet. So we'll do that if and when that opening comes. I've kind of given that some thought. Got some things typed out that we could put on LouisianaSports.net, and then I'll certainly talk about here if that becomes a relevant conversation. But right now, it's just kind of a wait and see with what Blake Baker decides to do. Let's talk about LSU hoops. LSU in the ACC-SEC Challenge last night in Boston College. I told you on yesterday's show, BC is very bad. They were 4-4 coming into the game, lost to Central Connecticut, lost to Tulane. Not a good team. And if you looked at that game on television last night, you can tell they're not a very good team, and it's freezing cold in Boston because there's nobody at that game. But when you're LSU and you won 3 games in the league last year, and they make these matchups up to try to put the best on the best and the middle on the middle and the bottom on the bottom, you're going to get paired with one of the bottom teams in the ACC, and they did. Boston College certainly fits that bill. And LSU came out last night and did what they were supposed to do. LSU led by 9, 8 minutes into the game. Marquell Sutton hit a 3 and then made a free throw a little bit later to put LSU up 14 points with 2 minutes to go in the first half. You were in complete control against a bad team. The only blip you had in the first half was the stretch where Deion Thomas came out of the game. They took him out for 4 minutes. And in those 4 minutes, Mike Nwoku picked up 2 fouls. You had a couple of empty possessions. Then you saw some confidence coming from Boston College. They hit a 3. They got to the rim. And all of a sudden, you lost what was a 9-point lead. It got cut to 2. They put Deion Thomas back in, and that lead stretched to 14 quickly. 12-point swing. So when Deion Thomas was out there, LSU had pretty much did whatever it wanted offensively. They led by 11 at the half. And you look at the first half box score, like it's indicative that LSU controlled the game. LSU shot 49% from the floor in the first half. Boston College shot 39% from the floor. The only thing LSU didn't do was get to the free throw line in the first half. They were only 2 of 4. It's a team that had been very, very good getting to the free throw line. But LSU had been very, very much in control of the game in the first half. And then you get to the second half. And that was just an awful half of offensive basketball for LSU. You were having success going to Mike Nwoku early in the game. You didn't do that. You were having no success making threes. You continued to hoist them up. They shot 11 in the second half. They went 1 for 11. And there was just a lid on the basket. LSU shot 9 of 34 in the second half. That's 27%. And you realize, and we'll get to this, but De'Don Thomas made the last 2 shots of the game. So you were 7 for 32 at one point in the second half. 7 for 32 on the road. That's 22% shooting for a half of basketball for a team that was in the top 5 in the country in field goal percentage. And you were shooting 22%. I tweeted this out in the middle of this half. It's just really hard to win a basketball game when you don't make any shots. And they couldn't make shots. There was one stretch in the second half where on back-to-back possessions, Max McKinnon shot a 6-footer in the lane that was a little bit of a runner, missed it, and then right back down the floor, De'Don Thomas shoots a 4-foot runner that he's been so good at this year, and he missed it. You will probably recall the one possession where McKinnon got back-to-back open threes on the left wing. Missed them both. I mean, he's a good shooter. Missed them both. And then Boston College got hot, and they started making shots. And LSU started coughing up the lead. Boston College made 5 of 6 at one point. That tied the game with 12:12 to go. And then LSU, from the 15:32 mark to the 11:41 mark, that's about 4 minutes of basketball, missed 7 shots in a row. And at that point, Boston College was kind of in control of the game. I mean, you got to give credit to Luka Taves, who looks like an 8th grader, but he was taking over the game. He was knocking down threes off the bounce, getting into the paint. He drew some contact, dished it, made a wraparound pass for an easy dunk. Like, he played great. And it looked like LSU just was having one of those nights. And I promise you, like, this team's 8-0, and we're going to talk about what happened in overtime and all that stuff. There are going to be days where you just don't shoot well. And if you play a good team, you're going to get beat. But LSU was playing a bad team last night. And to LSU's credit, and certainly De'Don Thomas's credit, they gutted and they fought and they scrapped and they hung in there. They hung in there. They hung in there. And then Thomas hits the 2 shots at the end of the game to give LSU the tie. You have to defend one more time down there on Boston College's end. They inbound. They get it to Taves. You do a great job of contesting a long 3. He double clutches it, leaves it way short, and you get it to overtime. And De'Don Thomas just took over. He scored the first 6 points of overtime, so that was 10 straight he scored in the game because he scored the last 4 of regulation, the first 6 of overtime. Boston College gets a bucket, and then Thomas to McKinnon for probably what was the dagger. Thomas drives left baseline, kicks it out to McKinnon. LSU couldn't buy a 3-pointer, and he buries it from the right elbow to give LSU a 7-point lead and really make it difficult for Boston College to come back. And BC reverted back to what they are, which is a bad team. And you look at their shooting statistics, and they ended up, I want to say they missed their last, I will have it here, they missed their last 10 shots in the game. And that started with the last 2 they took in regulation. They did not make a shot in overtime. LSU, conversely, in the overtime period, was perfect statistically shooting the ball. Perfect. They were 10 of 10 from the free throw line and made every one of their field goals. They were 3 for 3 on field goals. So LSU, when they had to have it, was really good. Boston College, when they had to have it, was not. And so for LSU, there's 2 things can be true. 2 things can be true. LSU gutted it out and found a way to win on the road against a power conference team shooting 3 of 19 from 3. That's 16%. And before overtime, they had shot 10 free throws and were not getting to the line like they had been. LSU played their C- game last night and won on the road. And you can take something very positive from that. I've talked to Matt McMahon about this in post-game press conferences because, lose games. You go, well, what did you learn about this and that? And he's very upfront about this. He's like, I don't want to learn from losses. I'll learn from wins. Like, you're going to learn from losses, but I don't want to do that. I'd rather win and learn, and this is that kind of game. Now, the flip side of that is you played your C- game. You played a bad team, and you were on the ropes. LSU was down 4 points with just over a minute to go in this game against a bad team. Boston College is bad. Boston College will not win 5 games in the ACC. They're bad. They're probably the worst team in the league. And LSU was on the ropes. And so that part of it is mildly concerning. But like I just said, you're going to have games where you don't shoot worth a flip. This is not the Golden State Warriors. You're going to have games you don't shoot worth a flip. And for LSU to come up big when they needed to make all 10 free throws, to make the clutch plays late was a credit to LSU. And you look at the final stat sheet and needed overtime to get there, but De'Don Thomas scores 23. Marquell Sutton scores 18. He had another double-double. He was at 18 points and 13 rebounds. Max McKinnon had 12 points. Mike Nwoku had 12 points. It's pretty balanced, and you got what you needed out of this game, which was a road win. Those do count more for the net, and your net has creeped up to like 16. Now, I'm not going to mention that or give that any credence whatsoever in early December. It does not matter at all. You're going to play so many league games against really tough teams, but you've got games coming up, well, this one and then games coming up that are away from your building against power conference teams. You got to play SMU. You got to play Texas Tech. Like, you're playing some teams with Boston College, power conference teams, and none of them are in the PMAC. So these are games that can help your resume. And I realize there are probably some of you out there that are rolling your eyes at the thought of resume with LSU basketball. And I don't have a comeback for that. But I choose to look at it in that lens until I can't. Like last year, we had just launched LouisianaSports.net, and they played pretty good in the non-conference. So every single Monday, I did a resume review with the net and the whole deal. And I did it like 4 times. And then they were 1-7 in the league, and I stopped doing it. Like, I'll stop talking about it when it's time to stop talking about it. But right now, it's time to talk about it. And LSU is doing a good job. They're 8-0 for the first time since Will Wade's last year. And you've got a couple games that are winnable coming up against power conference teams. I think you're probably an underdog in Fort Worth on Sunday. I'll check the line for that when it comes out. But you're going to be an underdog in that game, I would imagine. And we'll see what you can do against SMU, who's played really well this year in New Orleans. Those are much tougher tests, even though they're not true road games. Much tougher test than this true road game because there's nobody in that building and Boston College stinks. But credit to LSU for gutting through a C+, C- game and finding a way to get it done. They showed what they can be. In the first half, they played great. At a stretch at the end of the game, they played great. There was just 2 stretches in the middle of 5 minutes where they couldn't throw it in the ocean. And they fought through it and got a win. So 78-69 is the final. LSU gets the win over Boston College, moves to 8-0. And you could be worse than 8-0, I promise you. We'll see what they can do on Sunday against Texas Tech in Fort Worth. We'll come back and close out the hour next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
First American Bank and Trust. Looking for a bank? How about First American Bank and Trust? If you work with a big national bank and you've got an issue here, you dial the 1-800 number and you're not sure where the call center is or whether or not that person can help you or get transferred to somewhere else, and you just have a lot of trouble dealing with your bank. Well, change. Go to First American Bank and Trust. They've been in Southeast Louisiana for 115 years, and they're not going anywhere. Say, well, is it this little bitty bank that can't help me with my commercial loan process? Absolutely not. 25 locations. They got plenty of resources to help you out with your commercial or personal loan. And all their decisions are made locally. All their call centers are here locally. You're talking to people that you walk around with in our community day after day after day. They're in St. Tammany. They're in Tangipahoa. They're down in St. James and St. John's and Lafourche and Terrebonne. They're here in Jones Creek over in Dutchtown. You're looking for a residential loan. You're looking for a commercial loan. Deal with First American Bank and Trust. It's First American Bank and Trust.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Thursday shows brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Looking to get your clients a Christmas present this December? Usually always go with that bag of pralines or just grab the wine en masse and send them out. Same thing every year. There's nothing wrong with that. Wonderful gift. But you can change it up. You can go buy half a cow from Sean Sagrera at Sagrera Farms and say, hey, we're going to get that individually wrapped and packaged. We'll get it to our clients. They can enjoy delicious ribeyes, fillets, strips, flanks, ground beef. The top 1% beef in the country comes from Sagrera Farms, and your clients will be thrilled with it. If you want to do that, give Sean a call and make that the Christmas gift to your clients and your customers. All right, let's close out the hour. We reported last night at LouisianaSports.net. Wilson Alexander has it at The Advocate today as well. Austin Thomas will not be retained as LSU's general manager under Lane Kiffin. That's expected. Billy Glasscock was the general manager at Ole Miss for Lane Kiffin. He came with Lane on Sunday on the plane and has already been in serious discussions with LSU's signing class for this year. He was been in meetings Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, even today, and with prospective signees, and is learning the ropes and is going to run LSU's roster management department. And that was Austin Thomas's role. Austin Thomas had a great relationship with Scott Woodward, had a great relationship with Brian Kelly. He was integral in LSU going to the Seattle Seahawks and kind of learning how to run a salary cap and learning how to allocate resources in this new world of college football, and was integral in LSU's recruiting efforts as well with putting a roster together. And Austin Thomas and Lane Kiffin did work together in Oxford. That group split as Austin Thomas came to LSU, and I don't know what the feelings are. I get the sense not overwhelmingly positive between those two, but certainly not to the point where Austin Thomas would take that role and Billy Glasscock would be left out in the cold. So Austin Thomas is going to move out of that role. Now the question is what happens? I heard some folks in Oxford on Tuesday suggest that he may go to Ole Miss to take that role under Pete Golding because that position's vacant now in Oxford. And Wilson writes in The Advocate today that it's possible that Austin Thomas could find another role in LSU's athletic department. There are a lot of people in that athletic department that really like Austin Thomas. So Verge Osbury worked hand in hand with Scott Woodward, and Verge Osbury is now the AD, and I think would see value in having Austin Thomas around. I'll tell you this. I've had numerous interactions with Austin Thomas over the years. He is as nice, as professional as anybody. I try to be a fly on the wall or just out of the way more often than not in that football office when I'm there for 4 minutes on Fridays during the season to get an assistant coach interview and leave. I don't hang around and chat with everybody like they got work to do and it's not talk to me. So I get in, I get out of there. But I bump into Austin in the hall every single time. Says, hey, calls me by name. We don't go into, as I mentioned, like in-depth conversations because I'm getting out of there. But Austin's a great guy and I think has an incredible amount of respect in the college football community. And will land on his feet wherever it is. It's just a question of what he wants to do and what's available to him. I don't know what's available to him at LSU, and I don't know whether or not he would like to go back to Oxford or not. He's worked at Texas A&M as well. And these are big-time football programs, big-time football machines that he has worked in elevated roles with. Just a matter of what he decides to do. But I know that a lot of folks were questioning whether or not Austin Thomas would remain. There was a thought that Austin Thomas might be involved in hiring the next football coach if Scott Woodward was still around, and it turns out he was not. So that didn't work out. And then when Lane Kiffin becomes the hire, and those two have a history, and Austin Thomas left Oxford to come to LSU, you realize that that's probably not going to continue. So Austin Thomas's future in limbo right now just won't be with LSU as the general manager. As far as Billy Glasscock goes, to kind of dovetail off this to close out the hour, every single report that I've heard on Billy Glasscock in the last 72 hours has been very, very positive. Now, you realize that he's not intimately familiar in the way that he will be with the way that the LSU machine runs and with the way with the players that LSU is dealing with. So this is all fairly new to him, but you got to learn on the fly because when you take this job on a Sunday and signing day is on Wednesday, you don't have a lot of time to figure things out. So you got to learn on the fly, you got to be adaptable, and you got to get it done. And there have been numerous meetings between players and Billy Glasscock, between high school coaches and Billy Glasscock, between agents and Billy Glasscock, Lane Kiffin there every step of the way. And our impression from the outside has been that those have been overwhelmingly positive. So I think the world of Austin Thomas. I hear great things about Billy Glasscock. I think Lane Kiffin will put Billy Glasscock in that role and feels he'll do a great job. And I have no doubt Austin will land on his feet. I just don't know what that role will be, whether that's here at LSU in some sort of administrative role or whether he takes another role somewhere in college football, perhaps in Oxford. We'll see. But we had that at LouisianaSports.net last night. You can read everything for free there, signing day tracker, stories about the recruits that LSU got and did not get earlier today, and the report on Austin Thomas. It's all there for free, as well as Saints information as they get ready for Tampa coming up on Sunday. So go check us out at LouisianaSports.net. If you missed any of the first hour, it was all LSU. You can find it at Hunt on LSU. Talked about signing period, I guess, now that we're right in the middle of that 3-day period. Talked about that and where LSU goes from here. Talked a little bit about Blake Baker and what his future may hold. I feel pretty good about where I stand on that, and I talked about it in the second segment. You can find that at Hunt on LSU. And then we talked a little bit about what LSU goes from here as far as the recruiting cycle. So you can check all that out at Hunt on LSU. We got a lot to do in the second hour as well. Chris Blair's with us in 20 minutes. We'll talk with Luke Johnson in 30 minutes from right now. Pause for Sports Center. We'll come back and do some more LSU talking when we come back on this Thursday.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Marucci Hitter's House. Marucci Hitter's House. You got a high school youth baseball player, high school youth softball player in your house? Marucci Hitter's House is an awesome place to go for incredible savings on great brands. You're talking about Marucci, Victus, Balm, Lizard Skin, the Sable. It's a superstore for baseball and softball, and you can get some golf and athletic wear at Marucci as well. So if you want some footwear, cleats, trainers, on and off the field, you're looking good, they got you covered at Marucci Hitter's House. If you go on the Marucci campus tour at Hitter's House, you get 20% off that same day. So if you want to book tickets to go on that campus tour, MarucciSports.com/campus-tour. MarucciSports.com/campus-tour. You can go on that tour and get 20% off. The sale runs November the 28th through December 14th, Monday through Friday, 11 to 6. It's the Hitter's House over at Marucci.